Good morning, and welcome to the Bill Press Show this Tuesday, January 7. Record cold temperatures all across the United States this morning. It is cold out there. Yeah, some parts of the country have escaped, but the average temperature, according to the Drudge Report this morning, is 17.2 degrees. Here in our nation's capital, it is a very brisk 9 degrees walking over here this morning. Many schools and businesses across the land are shut down. Be careful, stay warm, and take care of yourself. Here in our nation's capital, business resumed yesterday. The Senate voted yesterday evening to confirm Janet Yellen as a new head of the Fed. No controversy there. They just put it off until after the Christmas holidays. President Obama kicks things off this morning with a big event at the White House, putting pressure on Congress to extend unemployment insurance benefits, which expired for 1.3 million long-term unemployed Americans, the first of the year. And the House of Representatives limps back into town today after a long holiday break. In other news, the Supreme Court has blocked same-sex marriage in the state of Utah until the state can appeal a judge's decision, which made Utah the 18th state to allow same-sex marriage. We hope that turns out the right way. And in Iraq, after all the money that we spent there and all the American lives lost there, it looks like Iraq is falling apart. Fallujah, a city won back by American soldiers, is now in the hands of al-Qaeda militants. All of that coming up here. Give us a call. Let us know what you think about it all at 866-55-PRESS on the Tuesday edition of the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
Stay warm. That's our advice this morning. Good morning, everybody. Great to see you today. It is Tuesday, January 7. Here we are. Welcome to the Polar Express this Tuesday morning. Chugging across this great land of ours this morning, where the average temperature, the last we've seen, average temperature today, 17.2 degrees. Oh, my God. I don't remember it being this cold in Washington, D.C. since we've lived here. Maybe, I don't know. But it is, it's bracing this morning at 9 degrees is what it showed when I walked in here. Anyhow, wherever you happen to be, hope you're surviving, managing to stay warm, keeping up with it all. And we appreciate you joining us this morning on your local progressive talk radio station, wherever you happen to be in this great land of ours. And also for the welcome to those of you watching us on Free Speech TV, and on the video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Tuesday, January 7th, the Senate is back in session. Actually, yesterday afternoon and early in the evening, they confirmed Janet Yellen as a new head of the Fed. The House comes back to work today. Well, to work may be a loose term. They come back to Washington today. And President Obama gets back to work at the White House with a major address at the White House this morning to urge Congress to do the right thing and extend those unemployment benefits that expired for 1.3 million Americans while they were on the beach over the holiday season. All of that we'll cover. We'll take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. We'll take your comments on Twitter at BP Show, and we will love to hear from all of our friends on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. I got to tell you, cold weather like this is a day you need a Carol Press scarf to keep you warm. We're all bundled up this morning. We're all wearing them.
Yeah, man.
Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy, good morning.
They're so fashionable.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Everybody fashionable.
Very
and
warm.
Soft and warm. Alicia Cruz this morning on the phones. Alicia and Cyprian Bolding, of course, our videographer, keeping us looking good on Free Speech TV and on that video stream. So I know, Peter, you and Cyprian are sort of hungover this morning from, you guys got to give up football or get a different job.
It's a great time of year because you've got NFL playoffs and you've got BCS bowl games, college football bowl games.
And last night was the college football, the end of it for the season, right?
National championship. Florida State versus Auburn.
Florida State versus Auburn. It came down, right, as so many of these games do, right down to the very end. Could famous Jameis pull it off for the Seminoles? Here is the final call.
17 seconds, I formation now.
Almost.
Here's the snap. Winston rolling right. Throws the pass on the other. It's caught! It's caught! It's caught! Touchdown official! Calvin Benjamin. Knowles retake the lead with 13 seconds remaining. Knowles retake the lead with 13 seconds remaining.
And the thing is, Auburn
retake the lead.
Auburn controlled the first. I mean, they crushed the first half.
Yeah,
they crushed the first half and came out strong. And then after that,
who was favored? Auburn?
No, Florida State was favored.
Florida State was favored, yeah. But it looked like they might have gotten bumped off.
I mean, they looked like they were out of their league early on. But, boy, Jameis Winston's incredible. When he turns it on, he turns it on.
He turned it on, and he was a happy man after the game.
I'm just so excited for our guys, man. It's not really about me. It's about them. I mean, and all I can say now is we're champions, and that's all that matters to me. My birthday, I can care less about that, man. And about the Heisman, I mean, if I didn't have them, I wouldn't be in that predicament anyway. So, but this championship means so much to me.
All right, there he is. Yeah,
he is a humble Heisman hopeful.
He
forget about his birthday, man.
That's right, man. He came through when he had to.
Yeah,
absolutely. Big game last night, and if they're not talking about the game, what is everybody talking about? What is the lead story? A headline in the newspapers and a headline on all the websites and the lead story in all the network news last night. The weather, the cold. Tell us about it. How bad is it where you are? 866-55-PRESS. We'll talk cold weather, but first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Yesterday, Bill, Jay Carney debuted a new look, and he looked a little more grizzly than you're used to seeing him. He came out sporting a Christmas beard, a New Year's beard, whatever you want to call it, but he hadn't shaved over the holiday break.
He had
facial hair.
He had 2 weeks to grow it, and he grew it, and what was the surprise was nobody knew it.
Yeah.
He didn't talk to one reporter during the whole break, so nobody had a clue that he was going to walk out yesterday sporting a new beard. He said he was inspired by Mark Knoller.
Since when has Mark Knoller been a fashion trendsetter? He's now
a fashion statement. Yes, indeed. So I've been thinking about it.
Yeah. Our friend Evan McMorris Santoro, he grew a beard.
I mean, it is cold out there.
It is very cold, Bill.
It helps.
Think about it. A major turnaround from past decades.
It would take me a lot longer than 2 weeks.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Another story in a major turnaround from past decades. Now a majority of Americans support legalizing marijuana. A new CNN poll says that 55% of Americans say that marijuana should be made legal. That's not medical marijuana. That's legalizing pot altogether. When this survey originally was taken in 1987, only 16% of Americans favored legalizing it. And then the most recent poll before this was in 2012, where 43% agreed with legalizing it.
Well, all right. Now, so all these people who say, gee, 55% of Americans don't like Obamacare, we got to get rid of it. Now, are they going to say 55% of Americans want to legalize pot, so let's do it?
Legalize it.
Right.
A 27-year-old man may face charges for doing something I've always wanted to do. He rode the baggage claim carousel at Des Moines International Airport earlier this week. Witnesses said the man had first stuck his head through the baggage doorway before he climbed out and rode the moving belt around the back and out to the other side.
How did he get inside the...
He was in the...
Oh, I see.
It was a passenger, and then he got on the carousel to ride it, which, again, is something I've always
wanted to do.
Yeah. The unidentified man, you're going to find this as a shock. He said he had, quote, had a few drinks, but he didn't think the action was that big of a deal.
I think that would be kind of funny if you were like, you had friends meeting you at the airport or something.
Came out.
And you just came out on the baggage carousel.
Put a nice bow on yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. How cold is it?
Oh,
yeah.
man.
You tell us how cold it is where you are, but it is. I mean, we've never, never is a probably a word talk show hosts should never use, right? It's been a long time since we've seen temperatures like this. People are saying the coldest in 20 years in many, many, many places. And just looking around the map, and again, love to hear your stories of how you're coping with it at 866-55-PRESS. The average temperature, according to Drudge Reports, got the map up and they figured it out, 17.2 degrees across the country. Now, that's the average, right? And, of course, a lot of places are record lows, sub-zero temperatures all across the map. Chicago, last report I saw was, and Chicago seems to be the center of where people, it's really getting hard hit. Maybe not the lowest temperatures, but, boy, when you get that wind coming off the lake, which I've experienced many times, all of our good friends out at WCPT, 12 degrees noon yesterday, a lot colder than that with the wind chill. Colder than it's been in Chicago in 2 decades. Outside of Chicago, 3 Amtrak trains are stuck in the snow in remote areas. And Amtrak just decided, rather than try to get those people off the trains, that the best thing to do was to shelter in place on the train. So they spent the night on the trains. I think they still have. The engines are running so they can still heat the train. But let me tell you, you're cramped in that kind of space. And the bathrooms, dude. And soon they run out of food. That's a tough situation out there. In Minnesota, parts of Minnesota, minus 30 degrees with the wind chill. Owen, Wisconsin, minus 29 degrees. Here in Washington, D.C., it was at 9 degrees. Yesterday, remember we talked? We were saying, hey, we're not experiencing this cold. It's 46 degrees and it's raining out. Boom! It got colder and colder and colder overnight.
It was like a 40-degree swing.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's crazy.
9 degrees this morning when I walked in here. I don't know what was your.
When I woke up, I'm a little more north. It was 3 degrees.
Oh,
3 degrees.
Yeah.
And according to my app on my phone, it says it felt like negative 15 with the winds.
Peter, and the fact that you saw it was 3 degrees and you just didn't roll over, pull the covers up, and say, "Man,
hey, man."
Did the thought occur?
I'm not saying I didn't think about it. But
even places that you wouldn't even think, like in Florida, 40 degrees in Naples, Florida. That's cold for Florida.
Yeah.
16 degrees in Waco, Texas. They've never seen temps like that.
Did you see the videos of the people in Minnesota? I know you mentioned Minnesota. They were taking pots of boiling water and would go outside and throw it up in the air, and it would turn into snow and fall to the ground.
Oh, my goodness.
No kidding.
It's like Siberia.
Whoa.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Nashville, 10 degrees.
Nope.
With a wind chill of Nashville.
Nope.
10 degrees with a wind chill of minus 15. Oh. Yeah, all over. And the story, poor people who had not yet made it back from vacation who were trying to get home, 6,000 flights canceled yesterday. This wasn't like snow. This was cold. JetBlue canceled, by the way, 17,000 flights over the last 3 days. Oh. JetBlue canceled. They shut down. They'd canceled so many flights, they just got sick of it. They just shut the airline down yesterday. No flights in or out of Boston, New York, Kennedy, LaGuardia, both airports, Newark. Just shut down.
And New York is their hub, so you'd think they'd be kind of ready for this.
Right. And American Airlines in O'Hare had to shut down many flights because, I can't believe this, the fuel was freezing.
Oh, yeah. You know what? It's too cold. It's too cold when the fuel freezes.
Gas or diesel, or whatever they would freeze.
We're on Twitter at BP Show, by the way.
Yeah.
Raising one eyebrow, a person that we follow there says last night it was so cold that his dishwasher froze up.
Seriously?
I've never heard of that.
Was his dishwasher on the front porch? Is he from West Virginia?
Bring your dishwasher inside, man. That might help.
Yeah. So Indiana, particularly a hard hit. Governor Mike Pence of Indiana telling how tough it was there yesterday.
We're dealing with extreme cold temperatures, and the combination of the wind and the temperatures have set Indiana on a path where we could be experiencing the coldest temperatures we have seen in 20 years.
I think it was in Indianapolis, in fact, that they said it was illegal to travel, right?
Yeah. Don't drive.
Right. Don't drive. And now one question. So I'd love to hear your experience. 866-55-PRESS. Let us know how bad it is where you are and what you're doing about it, other than putting on extra layers of clothing, which we hope you are. But one big question is, in a lot of places, they have closed schools. Not here in D.C. Schools are open, but they've closed schools. And again, not because of accumulation of snow, but because of cold, right? Because of cold, like in Chicago. Here's Mayor Rahm Emanuel.
They're not going to go to school tomorrow because it's not right for the children to be out.
Not right for kids to be out. I think that is a question about closing schools just because it's cold. Now, let's assume the schools are heated, right?
Yeah.
And kids get they get a ride to school, they ride the bus to school, or they walk to school. I don't think we've got cases today where kids are walking 2 or 3 miles to school. But close the school because of cold? I don't know. I think it's a little extreme.
Yeah, I have. I mean, my kids walk to school.
I mean, we become a nation of what?
Yeah. I do think that there's some scaredy cat stuff going on here.
Yeah.
We always get that rap, especially here in Washington D.C.
Snows. But with snow, but it's always snow. I've never heard of closing schools just because it's cold.
Yeah,
it's cold. Go to school.
Here's the logic. I'm not defending it, but this is the logic behind it: is that a lot of kids will wait at a school bus stop outside with their friends, and sometimes you're there for 20 minutes or something. So if you're there and you're not bundled up properly, that could be an issue. But I mean, at the same time, a lot of them are going on 2-hour delays. Look, it's going to be cold in 2 hours, man, and it's not going to be much warmer in 2 hours. So that argument doesn't hold a lot of water for me.
So tell us how you're experiencing the cold and this whole question of closing schools just because it's cold. It's the Bill Press Show, Tuesday here, 866-55-PRESS. Let's talk about it this Tuesday, this cold Tuesday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
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 How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 25 minutes after the hour. What's everybody talking about this morning? The weather, record cold temperatures across the land. How bad is it where you are? 866-55-PRESS. Here is Anthony calling from Chicago. Hello, Anthony. Good morning.
Good morning, Bill. I'm just calling in to defend Rom. I think he made a good call. A lot of these inner city kids do not have the proper attire to be out in this cold. It's minus 50 with the wind chill. It takes about 5 minutes of unexposed skin to get frostbite. I spilled some windshield washer fluid on my hand yesterday while trying to clean my window because the stuff in the car had actually frozen, and it froze to my hand.
Whoa.
It's bitter out here. And I'm no wimp. I was born and raised in Chicago, and I'm telling you, it is cold.
Do you remember it being this cold before?
Well, I got short-term memory loss, so I don't know. But, no, I'm
so
sure
you think
before.
You think he did the right thing?
I think he did the right thing because, it was a kind of hard call because you got some kids who depend on school for being warm during the day.
I know.
For getting food during the day, but
right.
It's really brutal out here. It really is.
All right.
And I hate the poo-poo on federal workers because I am one. But it was so cold, and messed up yesterday, and the trains weren't working because the switches were bad and the roads were so bad. My office was closed.
Oh, really? Yeah, they didn't close the federal government here yesterday in Washington. But all right, I hear you, Anthony. I appreciate your call, look, I'm not in Chicago, so that's why I appreciate hearing from you. It's just when I heard that Rom closed the schools, it made me think, what's that all about? Hey, while we're in Chicago, let's say hello to Tim. Hello, Tim. Good morning.
Good morning, Bill.
Yeah.
How are you?
All right, good.
I work on the ramp for American Airlines in Chicago.
Oh, you do? Now, what is this about this fuel freezing out there?
Well, it wasn't the fuel that froze. The trucks that deliver the fuel and the underground system, right, when it comes up to the ground where they hook into, that's what froze.
You mean the pipelines or something, or the machinery?
The pipelines where they got close to the ground. That's my understanding of what froze yesterday. And then the trucks themselves, the machinery on the trucks, freeze.
And
so that's what caused a lot of the cancellations yesterday, is my understanding.
Wow. Do they expect to get back to normal operation in the next day or so?
They tried yesterday and saw it wasn't going to work. They tried to have a normal operation, but it's just impossible at this point. I'm on my way to work right now, and it's 13 below without the wind. So yesterday it was about the same. So we'll see what we have in store today.
All right, Tim. We'll check back in with you later. Appreciate the call. There it is, a report from one of the workers for American Airlines at O'Hare Airport. Arthur Delaney joins us from Huffington Post next here on The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing done. I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go at 33 minutes after the hour. We're battling the cold here in Washington, D.C., but not as bad as many of you are all across the country, particularly out in the Chicago area, Minnesota, Wisconsin. It's 9 degrees here, which is cold for us, but not. At least we're above above the 0 point. Many of you sub-zero temperatures. Arthur Delaney, however, the cold doesn't stop him. Huffington Post reporter. He made it in this morning, as he does with us every Tuesday morning. Arthur, good to see you.
Good morning.
How was it out there coming in, huh?
It's cold.
Yeah. Were you tempted just to stay home and call it in?
Of course not.
All right. That's the spirit. And we're here with the entire team. Before we get to other news of the day, Peter, still some comments on the cold.
Yeah. I mean, well, look, to be perfectly honest, I thought about staying home and not coming in. But if you want to join in our conversation, we're on Twitter at BP Show, Lots and lots of comments on there about our question about whether or not it's smart to close down the schools in this weather. On the 2-hour delay, one person says, yes, it's still cold, but it's not as cold, and the sun will provide some warmth, even if the air is cold. That's on the 2-hour delay. In Columbus, one cat says it's -7 right now. Last night it was down to -10.
Where, in Columbus, Ohio?
In Columbus, Ohio, with a -37 wind chill. So, not a good idea to put kids out in that, according to her. And as Chicago Deb says about closing down the schools in Chicago, Chicago Deb says lots of kids walk to school in Chicago, especially because a lot of the schools were already shut down because of problems that the schools had. So they have to walk a decent amount to actually get to their school. So that's part of the problem.
What is the reason to shut down school?
That's what we've been.
So the idea is that the kids who walk to school or wait for the bus or things like that wouldn't, freeze when they're outside in the elements for 20, 30 minutes, either walking to school or waiting for
I
the
had
bus.
the same question you did, Arthur, but some people have pointed out that even 5 minutes exposure to raw bare skin, if you don't have gloves or the face or whatever, that can cause some problems.
And I also think part of that, and I've come around a little bit.
I don't know
on
if you
this,
get frostbite in 5 minutes, but
it is you hope that the parents make the right decision and that they put their kids in the right kind of gear, but not every parent will. And
is this something we're doing here or that's happening elsewhere?
Chicago has shut down, and there are some delays.
There are other cities that have done.
I think there's some shutdowns in Virginia today,
and delays for 2 hours.
2-hour delays in other areas.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to the business of the day here in Washington, D.C. Throughout the show, I want to give us your comments and your updates on the weather where you are at 866-55-PRESS. Arthur, today the president is having a big event at the White House to raise the issue of unemployment insurance. Actually, it came up yesterday at the briefing with Gene Sperling, the president's chief economic advisor, saying how important this issue is. Let's hear Gene Sperling. Get your comment.
The compromise that is inherent in the Heller-Reid bipartisan legislation is let's move quickly and pass this 3-month extension now. This will help Americans immediately, and this will give us more time.
So it's a 3-month extension they're talking about. The Senate was supposed to vote on it yesterday. What happened?
It was so cold that they shut down the Senate because they didn't want the senators to have to walk. Because hypothermia can set in as little as 5 to 10
They have
minutes.
an underground tunnel. Don't give me that nonsense.
Okay. In actuality, there were senators were back home and some of their flights were canceled. So they were supposed to vote on this last night, but they didn't have enough people there.
There were several senators who could not get here. Senator Bernie Sanders was going to be our guest this morning. His flight was canceled. Senator Jeanne Shaheen, I know also from New Hampshire, didn't get back into town. There's just two that I know about. So they were lacking some votes.
Senators have got to keep warm or they'll freeze.
Well, their planes have to fly too. But in other words, so no vote yesterday in the Senate.
And this happened at the very last second. They did vote on
Janet
Yellen. But because this unemployment vote is so close, they decided to postpone it. So it's Dean Heller, a Republican from Nevada, and Jack Reed, Democratic senator from Rhode Island. And these are the two states with the highest unemployment rates in the country. They're both 9%.
Huh.
So, that's pretty high unemployment
Nevada
rate.
And Rhode Island, huh? Right.
Yeah. And the only thing that it's not really a compromise. I mean, it's what Democrats would want, except that it is only for 3 months.
I was going to ask, what is
the
the value and what is the reason for only doing it for 3 months? I mean, if these people long-term unemployed, now if they're lucky enough to get a job, they go off unemployment. So If it's longer than 3 months, it doesn't mean those people are going to be on that.
Well, there are a lot of people whose benefits would last actually for only another 2 or 3 months beyond the December 28th deadline we've already passed. So it would mean everything to those people.
To them.
But
right.
what they're saying is, let's just do this 3-month thing so that we can then have a debate about a full year reauthorization and how we might pay for it or what Democrats might give to win Republican support. But it's kind of a funny thing that they'd be doing just a short-term fix after it's already too late. I mean, people's checks have already stopped. It's already caused a massive disruption for more than 1 million people. So in that sense, it's sort of absurd.
What, how, again, I know I've asked you this before. How much money are we talking about?
For 3 months, it's
I'm sorry.
For 3 months, it's $6 billion.
Okay.
For the whole year, it's $26 billion or so.
All right. And per person on it?
It's
how much a month?
It's like a little bit less than $300 per week, so $1,200 a month. Or less.
And these are people who are. This is it for them, right?
This is only people who have been unemployed for longer than 6 months, because that's when federal benefits kick in, when your state benefits run out. And if you've been unemployed that long, we know from research and anecdotes, you've already downshifted your lifestyle. You've already started tapping savings. So if you're in that situation, even the minimal disruption results in completely screwing up your juggling act with your bills.
So the fact that they delayed the vote in the Senate, does that mean they know, if all senators are there, that they do have the votes to get it passed in the Senate?
That's a good question. They actually don't know. They don't think they do, but
don't think they do.
There are 4 Republicans who are for it. It's Dean Heller, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, and one other person whose name is escaping me at the moment, but they need 5. And they assume they'll get all 55 Democrats, but we're going to have a vote to see. That's why you'll see it described as a test vote, because and some of the Republicans, like Susan Collins last night, she's saying, I'll vote for this. But this is not final passage. This is procedural. It's for cloture.
Right.
It's overcoming a filibuster. And she said, I'll withhold support on the actual thing to see if I can get something. We want to change the unemployment system somehow or something like that.
So there are only 4 Republican senators who are willing to extend unemployment benefits for the long term, right?
Who are openly willing.
Right?
Yeah.
So what are the others saying about why they would vote against it? We want to kick them while they're down, or what is their logic?
They're really shy. They don't want to be saying anything like that. And what they're saying is simply,
what reason do they give?
Well, it's the billions of dollars. Say this adds to the deficit. We don't want to do that. You've got to find pay-fors, cut spending somewhere else so that this doesn't increase the deficit. And Democrats are willing to do that. Chris Van Hollen had a thing in the House that was going to do that.
Yes.
But that's not what the Senate bill has. And so Republicans were saying last night, well, this is just pure politics. They're just bringing this up because they want to grandstand about the middle class, or they want to talk about anything other than Obamacare. That's a meme that has arisen. They're saying, look at what Chuck Schumer said on Sunday. He said Republicans will pay for this at the midterms, and they take that as evidence that Democrats are doing this for. Do
they have any alternative to how to help people who are
not
long-term
really.
unemployed?
No, not really. They'll say, well, we should do, after 6 months of unemployment, there should be job training or something like that.
Right.
But it's not very serious.
So is one to conclude that if it looks so perilous in the Senate, it's hopeless in the House?
I don't think that's an unreasonable conclusion. And it's worth mentioning, Democrats started making noise about this for the most part after it was too late. So I think they deserve a little skepticism in what they're doing, because why didn't you insist that this be in that budget deal between Paul Ryan and Patty Murray. That was the train leaving the station, and there wasn't any obvious effort to really pressure them into including the benefits, and they didn't. And then after that, we were just saying, well, obviously Congress is giving up on this. It's over. Yeah. And then in the last few weeks, Democrats have been saying in the House, we don't really have anything in our back pocket here.
Right.
Which is actually never the case.
Now, once they made that decision to say, okay, we'll forego it right now. We'll agree that we will not include it in the budget deal, and we'll take it up when we come back. I thought to myself, that means this is not going to happen. I mean, that makes it really, really more difficult, if not impossible. Unemployment benefits on the line right now. 1.3 million Americans already lost those benefits. Will they get them back? Arthur Delaney's here from Huffington Post. Join our conversation at 866-55-PRESS here on this Tuesday morning, January 7.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour here on a Tuesday morning. At the top of the next hour, Igor Volsky, Arthur's twin brother, is going to be here to talk about what Think Progress is up to these days. Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post in studio with us. Arthur, looking at the front page of Huffington Post today, kind of putting together what Congress is doing and the weather. Headline, Congress freezes out poor Americans. You could say this about the unemployment insurance. You could say this about the minimum wage, which I want to ask you about. This is particularly about the low-income heating program, correct?
Yeah, LIHEAP.
LIHEAP. LIHEAP.
LIHEAP. And, funding for it has fallen off. It's like almost half what it had been. It's not the result of anything very recent, but the cumulative effects of sequester on top of just constrained federal spending. This is just it's a couple $1 billion is what it is, after it had been $5 billion. It's not just Congress. So the White House made a big show of we're gonna make sacrifices, and this was the one program in particular that they picked on. They wanted attention for being willing to cut it. And the first year they cut it was actually a really mild winter, but now we have a polar vortex, and the whole country is freezing, and that is why we've got a great infographic. It's the splash in the Huffington Post right now. It just shows you the January temperatures in states and the amount of reduced funding. This is a program that helps you buy heating oil, or it helps you pay for your heating bill in the winter, your air conditioning, sometimes in the summer.
So timing is everything, right? So if you're going to slash heating subsidies for low-income people, the time to do it is when the polar vortex hits, right?
So you have
that they'll really know it, right? Otherwise, they might not realize.
So you'll have senior citizens on fixed incomes opening their ovens to keep their kitchens warm and things like that. That's the kind of sad story about not having enough money to keep warm.
On top, on a related issue, on top of this effort to extend the unemployment insurance benefits for a minimum 3 months, Harry Reid has talked about, and the president has talked about, raising the federal minimum wage, which is now stuck at $7.25. If they can't do unemployment and insurance benefits, what are the chances we'll see a hike in the minimum wage at the federal level?
I think it's something that's been done on a bipartisan basis before.
Yes.
Republicans have been for it. Republican voters are...
Passing a budget used to be done on a bipartisan. Passing a farm bill used to be done on a bipartisan base. Passing a transportation bill used to be done on a bipartisan basis.
Some of that stuff is happening now.
What? There's no farm bill?
There will be soon, I'd say.
Will there be a rise in the minimum wage?
Not soon. Because Democrats are talking about it so much. Republicans don't really want to talk about it, though it is more popular with Republicans, I believe, than unemployment insurance is.
We've talked about it on the program. The last poll I saw Gallup in November, 57% of Republicans support raising the minimum wage.
Republicans don't like unemployment insurance as much as they like this idea, and it's pretty intuitive. You can't live on $7.25 an hour. That's $15,000 a year. I think people know that's not fair for most of the jobs we're talking about where people get paid that much.
Yeah, which is below the poverty level.
Yeah, if you've got kids, that's below the poverty level. Actually, if you're by yourself, the poverty level is like $11,000 a year. But these numbers are arbitrary. It's not very much money. You can't really imagine living on that.
You can't live on it. No. Which is why I think what I find interesting about this is that at the state level, right, people see the need for it, and it's happening in state after state after state. 13 states last year raised the minimum wage.
Mostly liberal states.
Right. There's some
states where Democrats
have it.
Also, New Jersey, which is mostly liberal, but not headed by a Democrat. But yeah, it's one of the things Democrats are seizing on. It's part of unemployment. It's part of the economy. It's part of income inequality. And this whole idea of Democratic populists, this is a real centerpiece for that.
All right. So we're almost out of time here, but I want to enlist you, and we'll talk about this next time here. I want to enlist you on my campaign, which is to really get to the issue of fundamental issue of income inequality in this country. I think we have to stop talking about the minimum wage and start talking about a maximum wage.
All right, is that my homework assignment?
That's your homework assignment, right?
I'll turn in a report on the maximum wage.
I think that until we put a ceiling up here, we're never going to get, the floor raised.
That's class warfare. Fine. All right.
Socialism or communism, I don't know.
Basically.
It may be. Arthur Delaney, good to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Bill.
We're looking good. All right, we'll see you next Tuesday. Arthur Delaney, HuffingtonPost.com. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
In 1920s America, the Great Depression effectively erased consumer demand. Struggling manufacturers needed new ways to get people buying again. Innovative production processes like stamping and use of molds allowed them to use new materials for their designs. Products using vinyl, chrome, aluminium and plywood began appearing. American industrial designers began introducing streamlined, efficient shapes that shouted progress. Bel Geddes pioneered what we now refer to as utilitarian art. Things that had little reason to look sleek, now all of a sudden did. At the 1939 World Fair, featuring Bel Geddes' immensely popular Futurama exhibit, a new era of American industrial design proudly claimed to be building the world of tomorrow. Americans found great positivity in these futuristic forms. Yay. Things were looking up. American industrial designers realised that by making objects look great, people simply wanted them more. From cars to kitchen appliances, the most influential society on earth was spending money again. Mass consumption had arrived. Advertisers finally had lots to talk about. Personal taste could be expressed through the things you bought. Style became equally as important as function. Chair designers like Eames and Saarinen didn't just design seating, they created desirable lifestyles. People behind the product suddenly were stars. Everyone wanted to know who they were. Raymond Loewy was one of the shining lights of American industrial design. His face ended up on every coffee table in the nation. Toothpaste packaging promised whiter teeth. Washing powder packaging promised whiter whites. Who knew such simple household objects would shape the tastes and ambitions of an entire society? American industrial design improved America, functionally, culturally and intellectually, and exported it around the globe.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Volsky up at the top of the next hour. Peter Rockburn.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. Here it is on the Bill Press Show.
It is quite cold outside.
No.
And how cold is it? It's so cold that in Chicago, they brought their polar bear at the Lincoln Park Zoo. The polar bear, they brought him inside because it's too damn cold outside for the polar bear to be out there. They explain that when he's in the wild, he eats a lot more blubber to sort of fatten up for these type of temperatures.
Yeah.
But he's not ready for these type of temperatures. Elsewhere, in Pittsburgh, they brought the penguins inside because it's too damn cold. That's how cold it is, Bill. It's too cold for polar bears and penguins.
All right, then I wanna admit that I was wrong. If it's too cold for the polar bear to be outside in Chicago, then it's too cold for kids to go to school in Chicago.
Yep.
All right, so I'll admit that Rahm Emanuel was right.
Yeah.
That should be the general rule of thumb, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
But these are the weakest, wimpiest polar bears I've ever heard of in my life.
Yeah.
Come on, be a bear.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to the Bill Press Show this Tuesday, January 7. Record cold temperatures all across the United States this morning. It is cold, cold, cold out there. Yeah, some parts of the country have escaped, but the average temperature, according to the Drudge Report this morning, is 17.2 degrees. Here in our nation's capital, it is a very brisk 9 degrees walking over here this morning. Many schools and businesses across the land are shut down. Be careful, stay warm, and take care of yourself. Here in our nation's capital, business resumed yesterday. The Senate voted yesterday evening to confirm Janet Yellen as a new head of the Fed. No controversy there. They just put it off until after the Christmas holidays. President Obama kicks things off this morning with a big event at the White House, putting pressure on Congress to extend unemployment insurance benefits, which expired for 1.3 million long-term unemployed Americans, the first of the year. And the House of Representatives limps back into town today after a long, long, long holiday break. In other news, the Supreme Court has blocked same-sex marriage in the state of Utah until the state can appeal a judge's decision, which made Utah the 18th state to allow same-sex marriage. We hope that turns out the right way. And in Iraq, after all the money that we spent there and all the American lives lost there, it looks like Iraq is falling apart. Fallujah, a city won back by American soldiers, is now in the hands of al-Qaeda militants. All of that coming up here. Give us a call. Let us know what you think about it all at 866-55-PRESS on the Tuesday edition of the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww. You should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
It's so cold in Chicago, they actually brought the polar bear inside. Can you believe it? I gotta tell you, that's cold. Good morning, everybody. Great to see you. Tuesday, January 7. With the average temperature across this nation at 17 degrees above zero. Many of you experiencing sub-zero temperatures this morning here in Washington, D.C. It is all of 9 degrees. I don't remember it that cold since I've lived here, but we'll get through, and I hope you're doing all right. Thank you for joining us this morning for the Bill Press Show as we hopscotch across this land of ours and around the globe, bring you the big stories of the day from here in Washington, D.C., where the Senate confirmed Janet Yellen yesterday as a new head of the Fed. President Obama with a big event at the White House today about unemployment insurance. It's just some of the news from the nation's capital, around the country, and around the globe. And, of course, take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. There's so much going on, we can't sort it out. We never can. We depend on the help of good friends like Think Progress. thinkprogress.org. They're on top of it all, report it all, and we just steal from them. And Igor Volsky, a managing editor of Think Progress, our guest on the Tuesday morning. Hello, Igor. Thank you for braving the cold to come in this morning.
Good morning.
How bad is it out there?
It's very cool to be here.
Oh.
Nice to have you. See you next week, buddy. Bye for now. You see the door over there.
Very much.
Out.
Thank you. Thank you. I braved it for you. The polar bears have to go inside. I, on the other hand, went outside, ran to the bus. Now, you don't want to run in this cold, by the way, as a public service announcement. Don't do it.
Yeah.
I did. It was very difficult. I was, but
it's interesting when you run in this kind of cold, you actually can taste the blood coming out of your lungs.
It was delicious this morning.
Yeah.
Anyhow, you look a little older this morning.
Oh, went there right away. Oh my goodness.
Well, that's a way of saying. It's a way of saying Happy New Year.
Thank you. Yes.
And happy birthday.
Oh my
both.
God.
All
yes.
Right. Okay. Good. There, and that's great.
Oh, got it out of the way. Good.
Good. Great to see you. By the way, so it was a big event at the White House yesterday. Not the president's a major speech, which is this morning. Even a bigger event yesterday. There for the briefing, and the door opens as always, and Jay Carney walks out. And suddenly everybody looks up, and this is a new Jay Carney, a Jay Carney with facial hair, with a beard. Here's what it sounded like when he walked out.
Is that for me? It's all for Gene.
Hey!
Mine now. It's all for Gene.
What happened?
My wife says she likes it, so there.
He took one look at those poll numbers and couldn't get the motivation to shave.
We need a change.
My wife says she likes it, so there.
That's all that counts.
Happy wife, happy life.
Claire Shipman, ABC reporter. That's
right.
She likes it.
Did anyone follow up on that just to make sure that is in fact true?
Yeah.
Check the source.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the beard.
I don't know how it looks on him. I think he looks a little weird with it. I think he looks.
Because you're not used to it. Maybe,
he will always, but I think he will always sort of look like a 15-year-old boy, Jay Carney. That's not a bad thing. He looks like a young guy. So the beard, he looks a little creepy. I think. Mark Knoller, perfect with a beard. That's a guy that needs a beard.
Jay Carney said he was inspired by Mark Knoller.
Oh.
At any rate.
That's the first time anybody has taken fashion or grooming advice from Mark Knoller, by the way.
All right. So we'll get
It's a new year.
We'll get to all the big stories. Think Progress is working with Igor Volsky a little bit later. We'll be joined by reporters from The Hill and the National Journal. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Yes, just a couple of other stories making news. The media got a chance to meet the new giant panda cub at the Smithsonian National Zoo yesterday.
How about that?
Bow Bow made its
Bow.
first big appearance. Won't go on public display until January 18th. Bow Bow is currently 4 months old. Will be closer to 5 by the time that she goes on display. Just sort of hung out with the mom, tumbled around a little bit, met the media. But yeah, very, very cute little panda yesterday.
It was. I can't tell you how much time my wife Carol has spent on the panda cam.
All of Think Progress is on the panda cam.
Is that right?
All the time. So, yeah, it's very, very big addiction.
It's pretty cool. I have to say, I like the panda.
Yeah, can't wait to see it.
College football has a new national champion. Last night, the Florida State Seminoles looked like they were going to get routed by the Auburn Tigers in Pasadena, but 21 points in the fourth quarter, including a touchdown pass by Jameis Winston with 13 seconds left. That put them on top, and they stayed on top to win the game 34-31.
If they had played in Green Bay, it might have been different.
Might have been different.
Yeah.
Might have been different. But I mean, look, if there was any question about whether or not Jameis Winston deserved the Heisman Trophy, he proved otherwise last night. I mean, he
proved at the very end.
Delivered.
Well, all the way through, but particularly at the very end.
And singers are often known for requesting sort of weird things on their tour riders, and Katy Perry had a doozy the other day. For a private concert in Las Vegas' Caesar's Palace on New Year's Eve, she requested a very detailed list, including kale and spinach, low-fat meals without MSG, 3 bottles of red wine, and 2 of those being Pinot Grigio. She had gone on a tour with John Mayer.
Pinot Grigio is not red.
No, but just 3 bottles of wine.
I'm
2
sorry,
of them
I
being
thought you
Pinot
said,
Grigio.
got it.
She and John Mayer had been on a recent tour earlier in the year, and they together had asked for things like a director's chair, an aged bottle of scotch, and a very specific list of fruits and vegetables.
Those are actually the exact specifications I made to Brian my birthday weekend. All of those things. Only I had 4 bottles of wine. I mean, a few variations, but
You look good in this director's chair.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
it's fun
thank
that you. Bring it with you
I'm
everywhere
in
you
charge.
go.
Yes,
Yeah.
like to be in charge.
So just don't try making any of those demands to the Bill Press show.
Yeah.
Even if I come here in the cold.
We did pick all the brown M&Ms out of the...
Thank you very much.
What I love about this is the healthy stuff, the kale and the spinach, and then 3 bottles of wine.
Yeah, bottle of scotch.
Wash it down.
Who's she
You
kidding?
can't just eat it raw.
Big report coming out of Think Progress today on the war on poverty.
The war on poverty.
50th anniversary of that President Johnson's speech tomorrow. And what do you find at Think Progress?
Well,
about how are we doing?
Well, we're doing better than we were. We're not doing as well as we should be. The report is titled "The War on Poverty: Then and Now." And those popular programs that we talk a lot about, that are often on the chopping block, things like Medicare, Medicaid, Pell Grants, Head Start, Social Security, were either created by Johnson and Kennedy, started under Kennedy, continued under Johnson, or expanded by those men, and certainly under Nixon later in the 1970s. And it's a report that shows really the successes of a lot of these programs. The idea that we were able to cut poverty by some 20% in the first 10 to 12 years that these programs were funded at high levels. The idea that so many more lower income students were able to go to college through Pell Grants, that Social Security was greatly expanded. And the interesting thing is if you look at what was the politics of the time when all of these programs passed, when you had this great expansion in the 1960s, some 100 separate bills became laws that made up the full Great Society. I mean, you can't even imagine this kind of productivity today.
They can't get one bill passed.
They can't get one bill passed.
I mean, it would take 6 months to get one bill
A lot of it came together through bipartisan compromise of Democrats and Republicans working together. A lot of that compromise led to challenges. For instance, initially, a lot of these programs required some $100 billion in funding, but to get it out of committee, they had to really slash that funding. And so part of the argument of why some of these programs weren't as successful as they should have been is because the funding was too low. There was obviously other problems. But it's amazing how a lot of kind of the social safety net that we now talk about, that are still so prevalent in American politics, had its origin in the war on poverty, in this great society. And you know, it's controversial now, and it was somewhat controversial moving into the 1970s under Nixon when he ran on a campaign to eradicate a lot of these programs. He actually ended up expanding a lot of them. Certainly Reagan in the 1980s specifically targeted programs that helped the poor while preserving a lot of the entitlement programs because he wanted the votes of the middle class that relied on those programs. But it wasn't controversial, for instance, in the 1940s. And until the 1940s, people like Truman, who ran for election on expanding welfare programs, and it was a platform that was so uncontroversial that you had newspapers at the time saying, well, you know, you can disagree with some of Truman's welfare agenda, but disagreeing with welfare is like disagreeing with a man because he was born in a log cabin. I mean, it was really an accepted kind of truism.
How times have changed.
How times have changed.
So, bottom line. I was reading yesterday the poverty rate. 19% of Americans were living in poverty when Johnson launched the war on poverty. Today, 15% are. So Senator Marco Rubio says this proves that the war on poverty is a failure.
Well, this is, I think, an interesting argument.
Did it work or not?
It worked in the sense it worked certainly in the very beginning. It worked dramatic. I mean, the fact that you could drop the poverty rate so quickly in those 10 years is really astounding and is an accomplishment that hasn't been matched, I don't think, in American history. Certainly, it has had challenges, and part of the reason why it has had challenges is because people like Marco Rubio, people like Ronald Reagan, their kind of intellectual godfathers, did all they could from 1964 to present day to undermine the war on poverty programs. I mean, let's take it to present day. Look at the Republican budget that Paul Ryan puts out every year that slashes Medicaid, that slashes Medicare, that wants to do all kinds of things to Social Security, to Pell Grants. I mean, you can't sponsor and vote for dramatic cuts to safety net war on poverty programs, then turn around and say they failed. Yes, they failed because you cut them and now less people are benefiting, less people are eligible.
And you mentioned, in addition to the things you mentioned, the most recent cut on food stamps, for example. Right?
Yes, the food stamps, exactly, which were greatly expanded actually under Nixon.
All right. So this report comes out today. They can find it at people can find it at thinkprogress.org, the entire report. Correct?
The entire report, thinkprogress.org or americanprogress.org.
The war on poverty then and now. Among other things you're reporting, I was very interested in your report on the Koch brothers.
Yes.
My latest book still, The Obama Hate Machine. Maybe the first book out to expose the Koch brothers as the force of evil that I believe they are. Recently, and you're reporting on how much money that they raised and spent in...
Well, we finally have a number that all of the Koch-backed groups, it's about 17 different conservative organizations, raised $407 million in the 2012 election cycle. Now, how big is that number? We set out to put it in some context. $407 million.
Which was used for political contributions, correct, or support candidates, but also some of it used for ads and everything on issues.
Yes.
Right.
So, $407 million is the number Koch raised. By comparison, total small donations to Romney and Obama in 2012 were $313 million.
To both?
To both. Both candidates in the 2000 presidential election, this is Gore and George W. Bush, spent $343 million in the entire 2000 election, $343 million. In 2004, Bush spent $345 million on his reelection, and Romney, in this last cycle, spent $433 million. So in context, $407 million is an astronomical sum. And, Bill, it's like an eighth point percentage of the entire Koch industry treasure chest. So they could be spending a lot more. And as we saw, the recent Supreme Court decisions and Citizens United and the loosening of a lot of these rules make it even easier. Of course, the IRS is considering a new rule now to kind of rein in some of this public welfare spending that a lot of these C4 groups are doing.
The Koch brothers, they are everywhere, and they're. I mean, if you look at all the efforts now to block any funding, any legislation on global warming,
they're there.
Koch brothers are behind it. Right?
And it's not even that they're just behind it. It's really astronomical. They fund these think tanks. The individual from the think tank goes and testifies before Congress. He's questioned by a member of Congress who receives large donations from the Koch industries. The bill is that then moves to the floor, probably sponsored by another lawmaker who receives large donations from Koch. I mean, it's a whole cycle. Then certainly the media.
And as we've talked, you've got that operating at the federal level. And then at the state level, you have ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, Koch brothers funded, part of that $407 million, which, of course, wrote the Stand Your Ground laws in state after state after state, which wrote the voter suppression laws in state after state after state. So they're active at the federal level, the state level. They're supporting candidates who want to do away with most environmental regulations. I mean, Charles Koch has said he wanted to get rid of EPA, and 97% of what they're doing. So they are, I think, not a force for good, a force for evil in this country, and I'm glad that Think Progress has helped expose the extent of the country. It's astounding.
It's really remarkable.
That they would spend more than a presidential campaign
and the
spent
extremes
in an entire year.
that they go to cover the source of the money is also troubling, I think.
Igor Volsky, we're just scratching the surface of what Think Progress is all about here, thinkprogress.org, here on this Tuesday morning, January 7th. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech.
Tucson,
Aurora.
Fort Hood.
Oak Creek.
Newtown.
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 How many more? How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough. 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 Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
Council.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At 26 minutes after the hour, Paul Brandus from West Wing Reports joins us in the next half hour. Right now, we're visiting with Igor Volsky, managing editor of the great Think Progress, thinkprogress.org. Igor, the big political news of the week, Liz Cheney throwing in the towel.
Yes, calling it quits
How
after...
bad was it? She just couldn't raise enough money? She couldn't get enough support, or what? What
Well,
happened?
it does sound like she issued a statement saying that there were there's an unexpected health problem in her family, and
yes.
it sounds like it may be something with one of her 5 children, so we wish her the very best in that regard. She made a decision, given the state of her campaign, given that factor, to drop her challenge to Mike Enzi from
Can I just say I don't believe that? I don't believe her story, by the way. I mean, I'm sorry.
Well,
maybe I'm too cynical, but I just think she wasn't getting the support that she thought she was going to get, and she wasn't raising enough money, and she knew she was going to lose, so she dropped out.
I mean, I don't know. It does sound, though, reporters who are close in the Cheney circle say that it is a legitimate excuse. But, whether or not it would have made sense for her to drop out, if you're already in it and you have already kind of in the process, does it make sense to drop out now, or do you go all the... I don't know. I mean, that's certainly a calculation that she had to make. And we put together the 7 worst moments of Liz Cheney's campaign, Bill.
I just give us one of them.
Just one of them. When she went on Fox News Sunday and said she's not for gay marriage, and her sister attacked her. There's a whole family fight over marriage equality.
Has to be the worst. And by the way, a lot of Republicans didn't like that, raising that whole issue and making the whole...
Not in Wyoming.
Igor Volsky, good to see you, my friend.
Always a pleasure, Bill.
Is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan. Thank you. And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
And here we go at 33 minutes after the hour, Tuesday morning, January 7. Coming to you live from our nation's capital, our studio right here on Capitol Hill, just down the street from the United States Capitol building. Brought to you this morning by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. We all live better. Thanks to the good work of the men and women of the Teamsters Union under President Jim Hoffa. For more information about their good work, check out their website at teamster.org. Paul Brandus from West Wing Reports will joining us shortly. He is a little delayed on the Metro because of the cold weather here. The cold weather is the number one big story of the day, of course, with the average temperature around the country, as we've been reporting. At least on the Dredge report, they're saying they averaged out all the temperatures. 17.2 degrees. It's 9 degrees here in Washington. Wind chill putting it down a little bit, but nothing like what people are experiencing out in Chicago and in Madison, Wisconsin, and Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Des Moines and Duluth, Minnesota, and those other cold spots of the nation. And schools closed in Chicago, schools delayed in a lot of cities just because it's not good to have kids out in this cold weather. But the Senate is back in set to a couple of stories that we haven't had a chance to talk much about yet this morning. The Senate came back yesterday, reconvened at 2 p.m. yesterday afternoon. They had two items on their agenda. One was extending unemployment benefits for the 1.3 million long-term unemployed Americans who lost those benefits as of January 1. Not enough votes in House to get that to move that measure, because some senators who would have voted for it were delayed, couldn't get back to town because of flight cancellations. So that was put off until perhaps today. But the Senate did vote to confirm the nomination of Janet Yellen as the new chairman of the Federal Reserve Board. Here was the vote count.
The yeas are 56. The nays are 26. The nomination is confirmed.
Nomination confirmed. And Senator Jeanne Shaheen, for example, one of those who was not able to get there in time for the vote, went on record as, in effect, giving her an absentee vote, if you will.
Unfortunately, my flight was delayed, and so I did not get back in time for the vote, but I wanted to make sure that in the record it shows that I support her as the new chairman of the Fed.
Yeah, so you can make it like really 57 votes, and it would have been higher if all those senators had gotten back. On another front, news that you first reported this morning, Peter, interesting CNN poll yesterday showing that support for legalization of marijuana. In other words, Colorado and Washington State.
Legalize it and regulate it. And
right. We're not talking about medical marijuana here.
Right.
We're not talking about this like kind of silly thing they're talking about in New York. Everybody's so excited because New York is relaxing its rules on marijuana. Not really. They're relaxing the rules on medical marijuana just a little bit. No, we're talking about legalization of pot, regularization of pot, as they did in Colorado and Washington State. Now, according to the latest CNN poll over the weekend, 55% of Americans agree with full legalization of recreational marijuana. That is incredible, particularly when you look at how public support has gone up and up and up every year. The first time they tested this was back in 1987. Only 16% of Americans at the time said, yeah, we ought to legalize marijuana. Only 16. Then 9 years later, it went up to 26%. By 2002, just after the turn of the century, 34%. 2 years ago, it was 43%. Now it is 55%. Next year it'll be 65, 70%.
Yeah, and look at how quick, look at how big it's. I mean, it was a 10% jump over a 10-year period, and it was a 10% jump. The first time they took it, and then it was a 10% jump in the last 2 years. So, like you said, in another year or two, I mean, it's going to be at 70%.
And it makes total sense. And when you look at what's happening again, and in fact, when you look at what's happening in Colorado and Washington State, the big message coming out of here is not that so many people are lined up to buy pot. It's that the state, I believe the big story is, the state is making so much money out of it.
Right.
And so you have states, particularly a couple that have been pointed out to us, Maryland, Maine, Rhode Island, and others, where they're really hurting, they're really having a lot of financial difficulties. This is a windfall, the taxes that they could get just from legalization of pot. And again, regulating it and making sure that it's used appropriately, that people are not smoking in public places, that kids are not getting access to it, that people are not driving while they're high. But I think it's just a matter of a few years before two things. Same-sex marriage is allowed in every state of the union, and legalization of pot is allowed, or recreational smoking of pot is legal in every state in the union. We'll come back. Be joined by, again, Paul Brandus with West Ring Reports here on Tuesday. Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment, and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go at 17 minutes before the top of the hour, Tuesday, January 7. Well, it's so cold that they brought the polar bear inside at the Chicago Zoo, but it's that doesn't stop Paul Brandus, from West Wing Reports. Even a day like today, 9 degrees here in the Washington, D.C. area. He braved the cold, and he joins us in studio this morning. The founder and CEO of West Wing Reports. Here he is. Hey, Paul, good to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's so cold. I saw a squirrel covering his nuts last night. It's so cold. David Letterman would say.
That's cold. That's cold.
That is cold.
All right.
2 shows nightly.
Is this a Christmas sweater that you've got here on this?
My wife got this for me at like a pop-up store in New York about a year ago, and it doesn't get cold enough around here to wear it until
it looks warm, man.
It is so warm. I've got a thing underneath it, but this thing is, feel this wool.
Dude.
This is so warm, and I figure if I'm ever going to wear this,
today's the day.
Today's the day, and I'm telling you, I feel it's warm in here, man. So, it's good.
And good to see you. President Obama back from his Hawaiian vacation has the first event of the new season today at the White House, where he's going to be pushing Congress to pass unemployment benefits, which expired, of course, January 1 for 1.3 million Americans. As you look ahead he had a rough year in 2013. 2014 going to be any better?
Well, you know what? People say he had a rough year, and from a polling standpoint, absolutely true. I mean, he began the year a year ago when he was inaugurated, 52, 53%, something like that. He lost about 10 points last year, and I think I checked last night, 41, 42, depending on the polls you see, but in the low 40s, I think it's fair to say. So he really took a tumble, and a lot of that really was of his own making. I mean, the worst of it, of course, was this botched, even as they admit, rollout of Obamacare. So a lot of the damage done to him, no question, self-inflicted. I mean, the Republicans are eating it up. But at the same time, I would argue, Bill, that this really took place against the backdrop of an improving economy that really has escaped a lot of attention. I mean, unemployment down to 7.0. Gasoline prices fell pretty sharply. Auto industry really on the rebound. The housing market booming in most markets around the country.
Stock market is just soaring. Yeah.
Stock market, using the S&P 500 as benchmark, it has nearly tripled since March 2009. So the stock market triples. Boy, if that's socialism, give me more of it. Right. So everybody, if you have a 401 and IRA, you are a lot better off than you were 4
But as you
years
point
ago.
out, nobody's paying any attention to that. So how does that impact Obama in the challenges of 2014?
Well, I think that not denying the seriousness of these issues that he's facing. I think the problem for him is with regard to this improving economy. I think he lost control of the narrative. He really did, simply because he was on the defensive for most of the year over whether it's Benghazi or the IRS or NSA or whatever it is, and Obamacare. I mean, every day in the briefing and elsewhere, it was all questions about that. And that's why I saw at that year-end news conference he had before going off to Hawaii, he spent the first 10 minutes talking about the economy. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And everybody kind of listened to that, and then they just got on to the questions about Obamacare, because that's sort of, that's how things work here. But there's no question things are getting better.
He also said, what struck me at that news conference was he felt that 2014 could be a breakthrough year. That was his phrase, a breakthrough year for the country. I think he also meant for himself. And I think you're right, because, look, now with the New York Times and others, the Benghazi thing is kind of behind us. The IRS thing is certainly behind us. With the website fix, for the most part, I think Obamacare is behind us. Not the Republicans are going to walk away from it. So I think the president has those problems more or less behind him, right, and is able to focus on and maybe get some things done on immigration reform and some of the other
Well, I wouldn't
challenges.
I'm not sure I'd say Obamacare is behind him. I think there's still a lot of issues associated with it. I will say, compared to 3 or 4 months ago, certainly much better.
Yeah.
So the trend is better, but I think there's still a lot of unanswered questions about will they get enough people to sign up? What about, the laws being enforced here but not there? So there's a long way to go here, but nevertheless, certainly better than it was a few months ago.
You ended the year by looking back at 2013 and awarding certain people what you call the Tricky Dick Awards. This is with West Wing Reports. It's westwingreports.org or .com?
.com. Yeah.
westwingreports.com. Tricky Dick Awards, obviously named after President Richard Nixon. And who are the lucky winners?
Well, the lucky winners, if you go back and look at kind of the
some of them at least,
some of the the idiots, the scoundrels, the liars from last year. Man, it's a long list. And when I write this column for my partners out the week, I only have about 1,000 words, so I got to leave out a whole bunch of scoundrels here. But everyone from James Clapper, who we now know perjured himself before Congress. Boy, that's a good way for most folks to go to jail. But when you're the most powerful intelligence official in the land, you can apparently get away with it.
Yeah, the director of our national intelligence went in front of Congress and lied.
And perjured himself.
He did. He perjured himself, and nothing happened. And everybody says, oh, well, we know what he really meant.
Well, but even he knows, we know that he was lying, and he knows that he was lying too, and he got away with it. So it's really kind of a mockery of what should be a very serious law. So he made the list. Bob Filner, remember him? San Diego mayor, he made the list. Mayor Feely.
Well deserved.
As I call him. Yeah, he apologized, but then in kind of the the ballsy department, he tried to get the city council to pay for his legal defense. Their response, I don't think so. John Boehner made the list also. Remember Boehner has this he had a pretty bad year too. By the way, that's
he really
issue.
did.
Yeah, he really did. But Boehner has this alleged zero tolerance policy for malfeasance in in the House in general. But then along came that Florida freshman Trey Radel. Remember the guy busted a couple of months ago, buying coke from an undercover officer. Well, Boehner forced the resignation of who was that New York congressman 2 years ago? They're sending those topless naked pictures of himself to. Remember that
Anthony Weiner?
No, not Weiner.
No,
but it was another guy who. Remember that he sent. Anyway.
Yeah, I can't remember the guy's name now, but
I forget who it was. But he sent a from the chest up.
It was just a shirtless, right?
Yeah,
selfie.
Yeah. And
unlike Boehner, who was the waist down.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Chris Lee.
Chris Lee, that's
Lee
right.
is the guy that did it.
He was forced out of office because it was not illegal to send someone a picture of yourself from the chest up. It's kind of, stupid. But anyway, forced out of office for that. And yet a guy buying cocaine from an undercover officer, Boehner's a zero tolerance policy, his response, well, it's kind of up to the voters in Florida. So it's a complete mockery of what. So he made the list.
Yeah.
So he's a winner of the Tricky Dick.
Don't you find that certain things that always apply to Democrats don't necessarily apply to Republicans? And I guess maybe vice versa too. The other thing I noticed at the end of your just to show that we read you here, Paul. Looking at 2014, you had. Took a look at things that we ought to be worried about in 2014. Enough of that. And also things we ought to feel good about 2014. What are the things we ought to feel good about?
Well, I'm trying to remember when I wrote here. What did I a couple of weeks ago? Well, energy independence. I mean, it's interesting that, and this kind of plays into Keystone. People think that, the drill baby drill crowd, well, we need Keystone because we need that oil. My response is, well, if we need all that oil, why are we exporting literally boatloads of gasoline to all places, the Middle East? Our exports of finished products, gasoline, jet fuel, diesel fuel, have actually tripled over the past couple of years, and that is because we do not need as much fuel here at home as we used to. We're driving less. Cars are getting better mileage. mileage. We're operating more efficiently. We simply don't need as much.
We actually have produced also more oil than we are importing now. I mean, we're
yeah, that's right. The lines have crossed.
Yeah,
the lines have crossed.
Energy independence or whatever.
And now there are reports saying that
real.
Yeah, that we've passed Saudi Arabia now to become the world's top oil producer. So folks who think that we need Keystone here because we need that extra supply, we do not. We're exporting it, and frankly, the refiners down along the Gulf Coast, they're exporting as much as they can offshore now, simply because foreign buyers will pay more. That's exactly what they'll do, I think, with Keystone Oil. People will pay more overseas than here. So the Keystone Oil is not going to be sold here.
You know what? Why? A question that I was hoping I'd have a chance to ask the president that last Friday we were there is what's taking so long on Keystone, number one, and two, how can President Obama ever approve Keystone after the things that he's said about it? You know, he has said it doesn't create nowhere near as many. What is 135?
35 permanent jobs.
35 permanent jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, a pipeline across 12 states, whatever, to create 35 jobs.
Yeah.
Forget it.
At this point, given what we were just talking about, how we literally do not need it. I mean, in Cushing, Oklahoma, where a lot of gas is, the literally overflowing with supply. So I don't know what's taking him so long. I mean, really, the choice for him is: do you want to alienate, the environmental crowd, or do you want to further alienate Republicans? I'm thinking, what's the choice here? They're gonna, they can't stand him no matter what. So why would he do that? I don't understand that.
Just do it. Paul Brandus here from West Wing, westwingreports.com. We'll be right back here on this Tuesday. Got time for a call or two if you got a question for Paul at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
In 1920s America, the Great Depression effectively erased consumer demand. Struggling manufacturers needed new ways to get people buying again. Innovative production processes like stamping and use of molds allowed them to use new materials for their designs. Products using vinyl, chrome, aluminium and plywood began appearing. American industrial designers began introducing streamlined, efficient shapes that shouted progress. Bel Geddes pioneered what we now refer to as utilitarian art. Things that had little reason to look sleek now all of a sudden did. At the 1939 World Fair featuring Bel Geddes' immensely popular Futurama exhibit, a new era of American industrial design proudly claimed to be building the world of tomorrow. Americans found great positivity in these futuristic forms. Yay. Things were looking up. American industrial designers realised that by making objects look great, people simply wanted them more. From cars to kitchen appliances, the most influential society on earth was spending money again. Mass consumption had arrived. Advertisers finally had lots to talk about. Personal taste could be expressed through the things you bought. Style became equally as important as function. Chair designers like Eames and Saarinen didn't just design seating, they created desirable lifestyles. People behind the product suddenly were stars. Everyone wanted to know who they were. Raymond Loewy was one of the shining lights of American industrial design. His face ended up on every coffee table in the nation. Toothpaste packaging promised whiter teeth. Washing powder packaging promised whiter whites. Who knew such simple household objects would shape the tastes and ambitions of an entire society? American industrial design improved America, functionally, culturally and intellectually, and exported it around the globe.
Okay, we know you're enjoying the show so far, and you just can't wait for more. Well, there's another hour coming up, but if you're watching us on Free Speech TV, we're going to lose you. Don't like to do that, so we have an option. That's our video stream, of course, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. And in the next hour, we're going to be talking news of the day with Jonathan Easley from The Hill and with Fawn Johnson, National Journal correspondent. And again, take your calls at 866-55-PRESS, hour number 3, TawkrTV.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go. Just a minute or so left here with Paul Brandus. Jonathan Easley from The Hill joins us at the top of the next hour. Paul, WestWingReports.com. So we had this budget deal, bipartisan budget, just really about 30 seconds. Does that mean, do you think, if they came together on the budget, that Congress is likely to maybe come together on immigration reform and other issues?
Well, Eric Cantor sent an email to the GOP caucus the other day saying, look, immigration is going to come up maybe in the next couple of months. It's not their top issue. They're going to keep hammering away on Obamacare. And even when they do take up immigration, it's going to be in bits and pieces. The big Senate bill from last summer, they're going to break it up.
Right. So maybe we should not be too hopeful, right?
Don't hold your breath.
For the kumbaya moment in the House. No.
Do not hold your breath.
Paul, great to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Check him out at westwingreports.com. Sign up and follow Paul Brandus.
This is the Bill Press Show. Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
You think it's cold out there? You're right. Average temperature around the country today, 17.2 degrees. It's 9 degrees here in Washington, D.C., and a hell of a lot colder where most of you are watching us this morning and listening to us this morning. Thank you so much for being there on Braving the Cold on a Tuesday, January 7. If you can, stay indoors, stay warm. We're coming to you live, the Bill Press Show from our nation's capital and our studio on Capitol Hill here in Washington, D.C. Great to see you today. There's a lot going on. The Senate is back in session. They confirmed Janet Yellen as the new head of the Fed yesterday. Vote 56 to 26, with some senators not able to get back, because of flights being canceled because of the cold. The House comes back in session today, and the president meeting with senior advisors yesterday at the White House, and today he will convene a group at the White House at 11:40 this morning to make a major address about the importance of extending unemployment benefits for those who lost them, on 1.3 million Americans, long-term uninsured, who lost those benefits on January 1. Wherever it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe, we've got it covered. We'll tell you what's going on. That's our job. You tell us what you think about it. That's your job. You know how to do so. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Entire team here this morning. Peter Ogburn, who's off on a little special mission at the moment. Elisa Murphy at the controls.
Good morning.
With Alicia Cruz standing by to take your calls, and Cyprian Bolding on the video cam for our friends who are watching on the video stream. at TawkrTV. And don't forget, that's you got the option. Listening on your local Progressive Talk radio station anywhere in this great land of ours, or watching on the video stream on your laptop or your desktop or your iPhone or whatever at youtube.com/TawkrTV. Just to give you an idea how cold it is, let's start out in Indiana, where Governor Mike Pence says these are the worst temperatures we've seen in a long time.
We're dealing with extreme cold temperatures, and the combination of the wind and the temperatures have set Indiana on a path where we could be experiencing the coldest temperatures we have seen in 20 years.
For Indianapolis, Indiana in general, coldest temps in 20 years, record low temperatures in Chicago, which always faces the brunt of that wind off of the lake coming in there, making things a lot colder than in fact they are. So cold that Mayor Rahm Emanuel yesterday closing Chicago's schools.
They're not going to go to school tomorrow because it's not right for the children to be out.
It's so cold. It's not only too cold for the children to be out, but at the Chicago Zoo, as we reported earlier today, they actually moved the polar bear inside, because they said the polar bear, not being out in the wild, is just not ready for temperatures as cold. Now, that's really, really cold.
That's really cold, especially, too, when Chicago school is closed, because they're used to the cold weather.
Yeah, too damn cold. So take whatever precautions you can to bear up for it. Meanwhile, business goes on here in Washington, D.C., and right after the beginning of the year, we wanted to take a look and see how Obamacare is doing. Jonathan Easley covers healthcare issues for The Hill, thehill.com, joining us in studio this morning. Jonathan, good to see you.
Good to see you, Bill.
Thank you for coming in. I always want our listeners and viewers to know that I have a connection to The Hill, write a Tuesday column for The Hill. My column up this morning on The Hill, Bill Press, ISA exposed on Benghazi. That ISA exposed on Benghazi, all about how the New York Times kind of pulled the rug out from under Darrell Issa and his efforts to try to make a big deal about what happened in Benghazi and blame the administration for lying about it. That column will be posted on our website at BillPressShow.com and also sent out on Twitter to all of our followers on Twitter. Just for that little commercial there, okay? Mm-hmm. So, Jonathan, are we over the hump now? I mean, for the last 2 months before the beginning of the year, all the news was about how bad the website was, all the problems with it, and people weren't able to sign up. What's the story today? Are we over the hump?
Well, I think we're over the hump as far as these healthcare.gov problems go. The website seems to be running smoothly. Is the website working? It does. Yeah, it is working. I mean, there's still probably some lingering back-end issues. You might have heard of the 834s, the data transmissions from healthcare.gov that goes to the insurers. I think they're still probably sorting through some of those issues. There was a crush of applications right before the deadline last year. So insurers are probably still playing a little bit of catch-up, but all in all, I think it's turned a corner from being about the faulty website to being about now people have this insurance and are going to start using it.
So the front end, meaning where people go to the website, they sign up, or they look at the options, they make a decision, they sign up, they get their, what do they get, a card, or they get an email which confirms that they're a member, or how does it work?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, you'll get there's a confirmation email. Then you get your Obamacare identification card.
You do get a card.
Yeah, sure. It's not going to say Obamacare. It'll whatever insurer you go through. Like anyone who has insurance through their company gets. So they'll start to get some of that. I guess I might have overplayed it a little bit, saying all the website issues were fixed. Some of the state exchanges are actually, they were the initial success stories. Some of these states, California and whatnot. Right. Some of them are actually kind of dealing with their own front end issues right now. Maryland still doesn't have their website running too smoothly. They're actually talking about trying to get onto the federal exchange now. Washington, it's just kind of been a bit of a disaster with their website. So you still have these one-off states that are still dealing with some issues, but all in all, I think healthcare.gov is up and running. So
do we know, one of the things that I've noticed is that the stories that I've seen in the last week or so have been all anecdotal stories about people who finally have health coverage for the first time in their lives, for their families, people with pre-existing conditions, serious disease, serious health problems, that they are able to get health insurance that they can afford. That's a big difference from October and November, when all we heard about was people who were sitting at home for hours and hours waiting to get connected on the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. If any corner's been turned, it's that we're going to move away from some of those healthcare.gov horror stories and focus more on these sort of anecdotal stories. Now, Republicans are going to be pushing stories of people who maybe lost their doctor, or have a plan that they're not happy with, and that kind of thing. So it's all going to be kind of a little bit more anecdotal going forward. But I think one of the things to really look for now is that last week in December, people were signing up and trying to get familiar with their plans. They're really going to start using those plans this week. So I think we'll start to get a feel for how the insurers did making it through all those applications.
Well, that's the real test, isn't it? Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Is when people actually start using their insurance plan, and when they go to the doctor, they give them the card or the hospital, the clinic, or whatever, and they actually get the service that they believe they have bought.
That's right. I think the two things.
Is there it's too early, I guess. Is that?
It was.
Right?
It's still probably a little bit early, but I would say later this week, next week, we'll start to get a good feel for it. Basically, I think the two good things to look for are first of all, are people showing up and that made their premium payments, that have the insurance that they believe that they purchased. Did the insurers make it through the applications?
Yeah.
Are they in the system okay? Is everything running smoothly on that end? And the other thing is, and this seems a bit obvious, but a lot of people might have gone through the healthcare.gov sign-up process, done everything except for make their first premium payment. They're not going to be able to. You don't have insurance unless you make your premium payment. So the Obama administration has been under a little bit of pressure to release data, how many people have actually paid rather than how many people have just selected a plan.
Right.
They don't have any great data on that just yet. Insurers have that data, but that's going to be another thing to look for: is did everyone who signed up make their premium payment?
It seems that every time I turn around, I see a different number for how many people have actually signed up. Now, when you talk about signing up, people sign up on the federal website, some.
Mm-hmm.
Others sign up on their state website. Others come in through expanded Medicaid, which are not really like signing up, but it's due to Obamacare, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so do we know how many? What does it look like?
Yeah, so right now, the administration's numbers, which I think you can trust, it's 2.1 million that have signed up through the federal and state exchanges. Now, signed up like we were just talking.
Federal and state.
And state, right.
Okay.
So, and
most of those on the state exchanges, correct?
It's about half and half.
Really?
It's about one
Okay.
point, I think one or 1.1 million on the federal exchanges, and about another million through the state exchanges. And obviously, the state exchanges, it's only 14 states doing their own. It's 36 states going through healthcare.gov.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 2.1 million, and like we were saying, that's people that have chosen a plan through healthcare.gov, not necessarily made their premium payments. We don't know how many people have made their premium payments, but you would think that if you made it all the way through that process, you're going to also then make the premium payment. Democrats are also touting it's 3 million young adults who have been able to stay on their parents' healthcare plans. It's 26 and younger, and then another 4 million or so that have come in under this Medicaid expansion. That's probably the number that I don't trust the most. It's probably it could be significantly less than that. It could be that those people would have been able to enroll for Medicaid anyway. It's kind of hard to really know what to make of that 4 million number at this point. But for something that Democrats are going to want to use, 4 million there, 3 million with the kids, 2 million through the exchanges, that's 9 million. That you're probably going to be hearing that quite a bit in 2014.
Yeah, in fact, I've heard the number 10.
Round it up to 10, maybe.
You round it up to 10 million, right?
Right.
Does this mean that as a political wedge issue, do you think Obamacare is off the table for 2014, or are Republicans still going to
Oh no, I imagine this is going to be their main thing in 2014. And you saw how quickly the landscape.
Any more votes to? They've already voted to repeal it 47 times or whatever it is.
Yeah. I imagine we'll see more votes maybe to either undermine it or make some changes to the law, that kind of thing. You saw Ron Johnson announce his lawsuit yesterday. You might see some more legal actions and that kind of thing. But I think right now Republicans, their whole thing is, let's get through this unemployment insurance thing, this the minimum wage thing, and so we can focus on Obamacare.
I thought it was interesting. First of all, tell us about Ron Johnson, Republican senator from Wisconsin, has filed a lawsuit against I'm not sure. Is it against the requirement that senators buy their insurance through Obamacare?
So it's against, right. So Hill staffers and lawmakers are required to get their insurance through Obamacare. And what it is there's the employment subsidy, basically. The federal government, it's a buy-in to help make the insurance a little bit less expensive for Hill staffers. Like anyone who's privately employed, a lot of times their employers will make a small contribution. Ron Johnson is saying that that's a special carve-out for Hill staffers. So that's the way that he's kind of really trying to frame it, when really it's more of just kind of a normal course employment subsidy, I would say. But so he's suing to stop that employment subsidy.
Which is, as some have pointed out, maybe just another way of trying to keep Obamacare, the controversy over Obamacare, alive on the part of Republicans.
Absolutely. He even said in his press conference yesterday that it's not about the employment subsidy. It's about the Obama administration and all of these unilateral changes, and kind of it seems like they're making things up on the fly in some cases. He's going after this overreach of executive authority that he says President Obama has been engaged in.
Now, as to what he's really up to, The Hill, again, your newspaper, reports this morning that a veteran Republican member of the House from Wisconsin, James Sensenbrenner, said that he thinks his Republican senator's lawsuit is, quote, a political stunt. Mm-hmm. So this is one Republican saying another Republican from his own state is doing nothing but playing politics with Obamacare, which is what it looks like to me.
Right. No, it was pretty shocking. It was just kind of a little bit unnecessary. Sensenbrenner he could have just, let this go. Didn't need to chime in on that at all. But same state, same party. And it just kind of, I think what it highlights is, you saw this with the government shutdown last year, is Republicans, they know they're against Obamacare, but they don't necessarily have a cohesive strategy on how to attack it. So you get Ron Johnson saying, we need to stop President Obama's, unilateral changes to the law. You get, Sensenbrenner saying this is a ridiculous way to go about this. We need to focus on changing the law and make it better. So there's really no cohesive strategy within the party on how to attack it.
All right. So have we turned the corner on Obamacare, and what has been your experience? I'd be interested to know if some of you, as Jonathan was telling us, have actually signed up and paid your premiums. Have you started using the plan yet? And what has your experience been? Is it working for you? 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back here on this Tuesday edition of the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
About you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, Fawn Johnson, correspondent for the National Journal, will be in studio with us in the next half hour. Right now, Jonathan Easley's here from The Hill, great newspaper covering everything happening at the White House and in the Congress, thehill.com. Jonathan, we've been talking about the numbers of signups. What was this 7 million figure? If I mean, the administration is, if they add everything up, is saying 9 million, but wasn't there a goal of 7 million signing up?
Mm-hmm. Through the federal and the state exchanges,
right,
7 million.
Okay.
Now, that's the Congressional Budget Office's number based on projections.
Not one the administration set, huh?
Well, they seem to endorse it early on, but since they've fallen behind, they're kind of trying to separate themselves from that. But really, the CBO number assumed the website was going to be working well for 6 months. So, the law doesn't need 7 million to work fine, but that does seem like kind of a benchmark that people have made for it.
Well, and then the big question was also, are young people going to sign up? Is there any because we need them in, they're not going to be taking money out, they'll be putting more money in, at least for a few years. Any indication that is happening?
No indication yet. We don't really have any demographic breakdown based on, we don't know how old people are that are enrolling, anything like that right now. So that's something that the insurers are kind of hashing through. We'll know when they set their premiums for 2015 later this year, what kind of people enrolled. But right now we don't have a lot of data on that.
So we know people are signing up, but we don't know. And states that governors were that they did not accept the expansion of Medicaid, they're going to continue with that track, or do you think some of them may be changing their mind?
Some of them, could feel some political pressure to change their mind. I think we're at half and half now. 25 states, I think, have opted to expand it. And the number, we have, 4 million that have gone into Medicaid under Obamacare.
Right.
Supposedly, the Democrats are saying that in those 25 states that didn't expand Medicaid, there's an additional 5 million that could could become enrolled in it. So there could be some political pressure there.
So Obamacare, it is finally working. Jonathan Easley, thanks so much for your time this morning. Great to see you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, at 33 minutes after the hour, this Tuesday edition of the Bill Press Show, the Arctic edition, or the Polar Vortex edition, maybe we ought to call it. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital and our studio on Capitol Hill, and brought to you today by the International Association of Machinists, the good men and women of the Machinists Union. under President Tom Buffenbarger. Big and significant vote last Friday in Seattle about keeping Boeing in Seattle, and the good men and women of that union sharpening America's edge on the global economy. For more information, you can visit their website at goiam.org. Yes, indeed. Congress back in session. The Senate coming in at 2 o'clock yesterday. The House, I guess they're a little more tired after their holiday break, so they're not limping back into town until today. What can we expect out of this second half of the 113th Congress, isn't it? She knows. Fawn Johnson covers the Hill for the National Journal, lives on the Hill, too, and joins us in studio this morning. Fawn, nice to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Thanks for braving the cold.
Oh, yes.
9 degrees when I walked over here.
7 degrees when I came out at 7
Really?
in the morning.
Oh, it's gotten colder. I thought with the sun coming up, it might have been up a couple of notches or something. But, well.
Alas.
Particularly, thank you for coming in today. So, before the turn of the year, we had this bipartisan agreement. Everybody sort of feeling warm and fuzzy. John Boehner standing up to the Tea Party, and we got a bipartisan vote on the budget. Does that bode well for 2014?
I actually think it does. I mean,
really?
I don't. I mean, we have to look at this in terms of baby steps here. But the way that I've been thinking about it is the mini budget agreement that Paul Ryan and Patty Murray came up with last year was the first breakthrough in any kind of agreement for the last 3 years since Paul Ryan put out his initial budget from the GOP right after the 2010 upset in the House. And they've been fighting over the government budget ever since. And so this, I mean, granted, they made very few actual decisions, but they did decide actually to finally compromise with one another. And we're starting to see a little bit more thawing of the congressional activity. Just yesterday, you had Barbara Mikulski, who is the chairman of the Appropriations Committee in the Senate, talk about how they are on track to put together the appropriations bill that they need to do over the next couple of weeks to fund the government for the rest of the year. Now, that was the kind of thing that a year ago would have been unheard of. I mean, you wouldn't expect them to be doing that. So, I mean, it's a long way from where we were 10, 15 years ago when I started covering the Hill, when this was all just sort of regular order. But it's starting to look a little bit more like that. I don't know how far we're going to get. You know what I mean? Right. But at least it's not, limping from crisis to crisis.
It does seem, again, not reading too much into it, that both sides have realized that the constant gridlock is certainly not the way to get things done. But it's also not what the American people want.
Yeah, I think, and it's interesting to talk to the different members, particularly the Republican Party, because there are several who say, I think more quietly, in private, that they don't think that the shutdown was helpful to them, that they really would rather, not have to push these really tough policies. And then there's others. The one that comes to mind is Ted Cruz of Texas, who right before the break last week was opining broadly about the will of the people and how we have to just hold the government's feet to the fire.
Well, he still feels that the shutdown was a good idea, and I think the only Republican in the Senate who agrees with him is Mike Lee.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, the rest are sort of willing to say, maybe we should think a little bit more about what we're about. So I view that as a good sign. We'll see how far it goes this year.
All right. Well, the test will come soon on several issues.
Right.
One of is which you've been reporting about a lot. Which is immigration reform.
Right.
Not the first one up on the calendar, but perhaps the most significant one they could undertake this year.
I agreed. Yes.
But you've got the Senate, which has passed a bill, correct?
The Senate has passed a bill. The
and
House has.
John Boehner won't even bring it up to a vote. There is a bill that could be voted on and would probably pass the House if it brought up to a vote.
Yeah, and that's what the Democrats have been saying all along. But the thing that I find interesting about immigration is, this is probably the toughest issue. It's tougher than tax reform. It is the most complex part of the U.S. code, bar none. So it is the biggest domestic policy problem, probably writ large, that Congress would have to tackle.
Really?
House, yeah. I think I'm not blowing smoke here. I actually think that that's right. So if the House is going to take its own path and try and actually work on it, and all indications are that that's what they're going to do, they're going to do it differently, and it's going to mean that the Senate at some point might have to decide how they're going to cope with it. But at least it starts a conversation. And, I have had several Republicans tell me on and off the record that they don't necessarily think they need to fix immigration this year for the sake of the 2014 elections, but they do need to do something on it before the 2016 presidential election. So if you want to look at this as perhaps the training ground for what happens next year, there's nothing wrong with that. It's going to make, no matter what the House does, it'll make huge waves in both the grassroots sort of politicos who are watching this very closely, but in the general public.
So that the moving slowly and piece by piece or step by step
Right.
in the House, no matter how frustrating that might be, right, is an improvement over a situation where you have the Senate moving and the House just not doing
Right.
anything at all.
Yeah, and
right?
the thing that I'd like to remind people about the Senate bill, the Senate immigration bill, it passed in about 6 months. I mean, it was a pretty big deal last year. I mean, it was one of the few major policy things that happened.
Yeah.
But it also is just this huge bloated thing. I mean, it puts 20,000 extra troops along the border that you don't need, and doesn't take care of some of the actual problems with border security that come through, say, visas and other stuff like that. It was essentially they threw a bunch of guns, for lack of a better term, at the bill to make sure that they could get Republicans to vote for it. It could really use another look. So I think the House is just willing, they want to look at this stuff as one issue versus another, just to make sure that they can understand
Well, it kind of begs the question: how serious is the problem of people coming across the southern border these days?
It is. I mean, it's mainly judged on the economy. So the last several years, the last 5 years or so, it's actually
the flow,
it's trickled to the point where it's almost. I think people leaving and coming. It's at points.
That's
the
what
lowest
I've
point. It's been at zero.
That's what I've read too. So I mean, but some people, particularly those who are against immigration reform, they always say, "Well, first we have to toughen the border, secure the border, secure the border." Basically, the border is secure today, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I don't know what you mean by people are still coming across. It's not a
But it's not the flood that we had 10 or 20 years ago.
And I have. I mean,
I'm from California, right? I mean, there were waves of them coming.
And there are border security people, along the border now who will tell you that they spend their days just walking around looking at sand, whereas when they started 5-8 years ago, they were picking up people that had 5 or 10 pickups a day. And they're not doing that so much anymore. So, I mean, I would argue that I think, this is just my opinion, that the border is as secure as it's going to be.
So the challenge really is the status of the 11 or 12 million people who are here illegally, came here illegally, and what path to citizenship, if any, we provide for them.
Well, there's that challenge. And then the other challenge is, what do you do for people who want to come in the future and for whom there are jobs, but there are no visas? And this is the balance they've been trying to strike this balance.
So the New York Times reported, and perhaps the National Journal too, if you did, I give you credit for doing so, that John Boehner has shown that the signs that he's maybe interested in doing something is he's hired a couple of immigration reform experts.
He hired one staffer.
Okay.
Her name is Rebecca Talent. She was she used to be the chief of staff for Senator John McCain when Senator John McCain was the chief sponsor of a major immigration bill in 2006.
Right.
She also she worked for Representative Jim Colby of Arizona back when he wrote a comprehensive immigration bill with Luis Gutierrez, the Democrat from Illinois. Yes. The thing that I give her credit for mainly is that she spent a lot of time making sure that the unions who are very concerned about adding extra visas did not have too much power. So she really pushed for the business interests and for the Republican interests in some of these bills with McCain, and I think actually offered a real good counterweight to some of the lobbying forces on the other side. She's incredibly smart, and there's no way that her being on John Boehner's staff doesn't mean that they're not going to make a serious effort to do something. What they do is up to debate. I mean, I'm not sure that the situation when she was on the Hill before is very different than it was now. George Bush was in the office, and he wanted immigration reform. The cast of characters in the House GOP are really not very friendly to the issue, but if anybody knows it, she does, and she also is a huge believer in a path to citizenship.
But that's a good sign. That's a good sign. Before they get to immigration reform, of course, there are some other issues on the table: unemployment insurance, minimum wage, and a debt ceiling crisis, just to name three that they're going to have to deal with. Fawn Johnson here from the National Journal, nationaljournal.com. If you want to join our conversation, we've got a seat here at the table for you at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go on Tuesday morning, January 7. It's cold out there. Probably a lot colder where you are than here in Washington, D.C., but even here in Washington is now 7 degrees above zero. Fawn Johnson from the National Journal made her way into studio this morning despite the cold. Congress is back, so you got to be to work, right?
I do. I'm going.
Are you
right
heading
to the
down
Senate
the Capitol
after we're done here to watch them vote on the unemployment extension?
Extension of the unemployment benefits. A lot of us feel that should have been, and a lot of members of Congress felt that should have, particularly Democrats, that should have been part of the budget deal. It was not.
Right.
Harry Reid pledged to bring it up again the very first day or so of this new year. And what's it look like?
Well,
first in the Senate.
In the Senate, so what they're doing today is they're voting on it's a procedural vote. It's the sort of the bar, the 60 vote bar that you have to have in order to actually pass it.
Yeah.
I think that the conventional wisdom is that they don't have the 60 votes to get over it. Although there's a number of Republicans that I know that the White House is targeting. We expect Susan Collins of Maine to vote for it. We know that Dean Heller of Nevada will vote for it because
he's the co-chair, right? Or co-author.
But I think the problem with this particular bill is that it's a 3-month extension of these. These are benefits for people who've been unemployed for longer than 6 months. So the regular unemployment benefits are still in place, but these long-term benefits they expired on December 28th, and the problem is that it costs money and there's no offset for it. So it's $6 billion just to have these benefits go until March 31st, that's not a long time, and it's money that they haggled over less money in the mini budget deal last month. So the question is, do the Democrats decide that they want to shame the Republicans into voting for benefits for people when there's 1.3 million who've been unemployed for longer than 6 months? There's something like, I think, 3 applicants for every job opening in a lot of places around the country. I mean, it's a very sad story. Or are the Democrats going to try and negotiate with Republicans and give them something that they want? I'm not getting signs from Democrats that they want to negotiate. I think they want to just say, look, this is the right thing to do and let's do it. But Republicans aren't quite willing to go there.
How many Republicans do they need?
They need 5, I think, if I'm counting right, which I'm.
53 Democrats and 52 plus 3 independents, right?
They'll need 5. I think I know that they're targeting people like Mark Kirk of Illinois, and then the 2 Arizona senators, John McCain and Jeff Flake, and there's a few others that they have on their list. But the problem is that because it's not paid for, because there's not any effort to try and come up with something else to add on to it that might help it, I think it's very easy, even for Republicans who want to make sure that those benefits are extended, to say this particular deal won't do.
A related issue is increasing the minimum wage. I don't know whether that's scheduled for a vote yet, but there's certainly legislation to do so, to move it up from $7.25, where it's been stuck since 2009, to $10.10.
Right. That one is, I think, that's really more of an election issue. But you can bet that you're going to be seeing votes on that in the Senate all year long. The proposal there's a proposal in the House as well, but it's sponsored by Democrats, so you can't expect it to go anywhere. It goes up to 10.10. It's in 3 annual increments, so the idea is that people can prepare for it
and then index to inflation.
Right. Well, that's the crucial part of it, is that this is the first time. If they were to pass something like this, it would be the first time that the minimum wage would go up automatically after they hit the level, which it could be a game changer if it were to actually happen.
Absolutely, and it would get it out of partisan politics,
right?
Once and for all.
I might argue, if I'm a Democrat, that the minimum wage is a really good issue for Democrats. They can argue on it all they want. Generally, the population, it's a popular issue. The only people who tend to balk at it a little bit tend to be business types. But, for the most part, the populist tendency is, the businesses can afford to pay a living wage or minorly living wage.
Right. No, the last poll I saw, 57% of Republicans said they would support an increase.
It's a really good issue for them. But I expect Republicans to oppose that all the way through this year.
Right. Well, that does it. We're out of time. Fawn, so good to have you in studio. Thank you
Happy
so
to be
much.
here.
All right. Look forward to having you back. Okay. And I'll get the final word with today's parting shot coming up next.
This is the Bill Press Show. The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, wouldn't you know it, these cold temperatures arrive, the polar vortex, and idiots pop up to say that this proves there's no such thing as global warming. Idiots like Donald Trump, who tweeted out yesterday, quote, "This very expensive global warming BS has got to stop. Our planet is freezing, and our global warming scientists are stuck in ice." Come on, even a third grader smarter than that. Even a third grader knows that, for one, 2 or 3 days of sub-zero winter temperatures don't cancel out longer record high temperatures we've been experiencing. They know that when it's winter here, it's summer somewhere else, like in Australia, which is experiencing temperatures in the 120-degree plus range. And they also know that scientists tell us that global warming is responsible for both record summer heat and more precipitation in winter. In other words, no matter how cold it is today, global warming is real. And besides, only an idiot would believe Donald Trump about anything. That's it for today, folks. Have a good one.
This
Come back and see us
is
again
the Bill Press
tomorrow morning.
Show.